Why was everyone in the gun store laughing at her? The door chime sang through the shop like a warning bell no one heard. Sarah Mitchell pushed through the glass entrance and fluorescent lights painted everything in harsh, unforgiving white. Display cases gleamed. Weapons sat like museum pieces. Perfect. Untouched. Safe. She looked like someone's grandmother. Faded jeans, worn flannel shirt, sneakers with frayed edges. The kind of woman you'd see loading groceries into a minivan, not examining tactical rifles behind bulletproof glass. Tyler Brooks noticed her first. 28 years old, head instructor, muscles straining against his polo shirt like they were trying to escape. He glanced at the woman who just walked in, and his lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. More like a predator recognizing prey. "Yo, Chad," Tyler's laugh cut through the ambient hum. "Looks like someone took a wrong turn. Walmart's across the street, lady." Laughter rippled, quick, cruel, comfortable. Jessica Lane swung her phone camera toward Sarah. 2 million followers, an influencer who documented everything. Her voice dripped with manufactured sweetness. "Oh my God, you guys have to see this. When suburban moms think this is a kitchen supply store." Sarah said nothing. She moved slowly toward the glass cases. Custom sniper rifles lay inside like sleeping predators. Her hands trembled as they touched the cold glass. Not from age, from something else, something deeper, something that woke up in the night and refused to sleep. Marcus Cole stepped forward. Former Ranger, tattoos covering both arms, stories written in ink that he'd never actually lived. He positioned himself between Sarah and the VIP section like a bouncer at an exclusive club. "This area is for professionals only, Grandma." His voice was loud, confident. "Revolvers for beginners are over there." What they didn't know could fill oceans. What they didn't know could topple governments. What they didn't know was standing right in front of them, wearing a flannel shirt from Target and sneakers that had seen better days. Sarah checked her old G-Shock watch. 9:47 a.m. The same habit. Before every mission, before every operation, before everything changed and nothing would ever be the same again. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and for a moment her vision blurred. Operation Crimson Night. 12 souls went in, only she came out. The tremor in her hands wasn't from age or fear. It was from memories that refused to stay buried. Memories that clawed their way up from wherever you tried to hide them. Memories written in blood and sand, and the faces of people who trusted you to bring them home. Tyler led a group of 4 trainers forward, each one towering over Sarah by at least a head. Their tactical vests and branded shirts made them look like a small army. They moved with the confidence of people who'd never faced real combat, who'd never heard the sound a body makes when it stops being a person, who'd never had to write letters to families explaining why their sons and daughters weren't coming home. Jessica's live stream title read, "When Karen Meets Guns." 50,000 viewers, climbing in real time. Marcus crossed his arms, biceps flexing deliberately as he blocked the path to the VIP section. "Members only, Grandma. Maybe try the gift shop for some keychains." But something happened then. Something small, something most people wouldn't have noticed. Tommy, a 19-year-old part-timer with acne scars and nervous eyes, quietly slipped Sarah a tissue. He'd noticed her eyes were red. The gesture was small, hidden from the others, but Sarah noticed. She always noticed everything. Alina, a 70-year-old regular customer with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, whispered as she passed, "Don't let them bully you, dear." Tyler stepped closer, close enough that Sarah could smell the protein shake on his breath. "So, Grandma, you here to buy something or just window shopping? Maybe looking for a gift for the grandkids?" "I'm looking at rifles." Sarah's voice was steady, quiet, the kind of quiet that comes from knowing you don't need to be loud to be heard. "Rifles," Tyler's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. You even know what caliber means, or is that too complicated? Sarah's eyes met his. Not with anger, not with shame, just met them. Caliber refers to the internal diameter of a gun barrel or the diameter of the projectile it fires. Would you like me to explain the difference between NATO and Soviet caliber standards? The group went quiet for a moment. Then Tyler forced a laugh. Okay, okay. Someone did their homework on Wikipedia, but knowing definitions doesn't mean you know guns. Tell me, what's the difference between an AR-15 and an M4? Sarah's response came without hesitation. The M4 has a 14.5-inch barrel compared to the AR-15's typical 16-inch civilian length. The M4 features a collapsible stock, full auto capability with a 3-round burst in most variants, and uses mil-spec parts with tighter tolerances. The feed ramps are different. M4 ramps are cut deeper into the receiver. The barrel profile is different too. Government profile on the M4 versus various profiles on civilian ARs. Buffer weights vary, with the M4 using an H or H2 buffer for reliability with the shorter gas system. Silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that comes when the script gets thrown out and no one knows their lines anymore. Okay, okay, Marcus interrupted, laughing nervously. Someone's been watching too much YouTube. Wikipedia warrior alert. But Tyler wasn't ready to let it go. His pride had been pricked, and in front of his crew, that was unacceptable. He reached behind the counter and grabbed a Glock 19, ejecting the magazine and checking the chamber with exaggerated movements. 30 seconds, he said, tossing it toward Sarah. If you even know how to hold it properly, break it down. 30 seconds. Sarah caught the pistol with one hand. Her movement was so natural that Tommy stopped pretending to organize ammunition boxes just to watch. Her fingers moved with practiced precision. Magazine out, slide locked back, barrel out, recoil spring removed, slide off. The parts laid out on the counter in perfect order. 7.3 seconds, Tommy whispered, checking his phone timer. The shop record is 15 seconds. Lucky fluke, Marcus's voice cracked slightly. Do it again with your eyes closed this time. Sarah reassembled the weapon without looking at him, then closed her eyes. Her hands moved with the same steady rhythm, like a pianist playing from memory, like breathing, like something you never forget even when you wish you could. Disassembly complete. 8.1 seconds. The laughter had died completely now. Jessica's camera was still rolling, but she'd stopped her commentary. A few other customers had stopped browsing, drawn by the sudden silence where mockery had been moments before. Tyler's face was red now, not from embarrassment, from anger. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. He was the expert here. He was the one people came to for training. He was the one who knew things. Fine, he said, his voice harder now. Anyone can play with an unloaded gun. Let's see if Grandma can actually shoot. As they moved toward the indoor range, Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her daughter. Mom, can you pick up Emma from school today? Sarah's voice caught slightly as she answered, I'll try, honey. How many times had she said those words? How many school plays, soccer games, birthdays had she missed because duty called? Because somewhere in the world, people needed saving and she was the only one who could do it. The tremor was back in her hands, but she pushed it down. Some habits died harder than others. The range was state-of-the-art. 25 yards of pristine lanes with digital target systems. Tyler made a show of setting up lane 3, selecting a SIG P320 from the rental wall. 10 rounds, he announced loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. Grandma needs to put them all in a 2-inch group at 25 yards. That's pretty much impossible for someone without training. But hey, maybe she'll get lucky again. Sarah picked up the weapon, checking it with movements so automatic she didn't even think about them anymore. Press check. Magazine seated. Weapon condition. May I use a weaver stance instead of isosceles? The question brought more laughter. Weaver stance, Jessica giggled. That's so 1980s. Did you learn that from an old cop show? Sarah didn't respond. She simply took her position. Support arm bent, strong arm extended, body bladed to the target, an outdated stance by modern standards, but one that had served her well in places where modern standards meant nothing. The first shot cracked through the air. Then the second. 10 rounds fired in a steady rhythm. No rush, no hesitation, just the sound of controlled violence contained in brass and lead. Tyler was already smirking, ready to point out the scattered grouping that he was sure would be there. The target came back on the automated retrieval system. Tommy was the first to speak, 0.8 inches, all 10 rounds. His voice was barely a whisper. That's not possible. But what came next changed everything. Sarah adjusted her bag, pulling out what looked like specialized equipment. The kind of equipment you don't buy at civilian stores. The kind that has military designation numbers instead of brand names. Her phone rang. The ringtone was different, not the cheerful melody she used for family calls. This was something else, something urgent. Sarah stepped away from the range, and her voice dropped to a tone that made even Tyler stop posturing. Mitchell, a pause. When? Another pause, longer this time. I'm 20 minutes out. She ended the call and turned to face the group. For the first time, they saw something in her eyes that made them step back. Not fear exactly. Something older than fear. Something that lived in the space between life and death where decisions got made that civilians never had to face. I need to leave, she said simply. But Tyler started. Now. The word wasn't loud, wasn't aggressive, but it carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed, someone who'd commanded in situations where hesitation meant body bags. As Sarah walked toward the exit, Alina caught her arm gently. You were in the service, weren't you, dear? Sarah paused, met the old woman's eyes. A long time ago, she said softly, a different life. They should have shown you more respect. Respect isn't given, ma'am, it's earned. And sometimes, Sarah glanced back at Tyler and his crew, sometimes people don't know enough to recognize what stands in front of them. She left the shop with Jessica's phone still recording, with Tyler's face still red, with Tommy quietly researching military marksmanship records on his phone, with Marcus wondering why his ranger training suddenly felt inadequate. They had no idea what just walked out of their store. No idea that Sarah Mitchell wasn't someone's harmless grandmother. She was a ghost. And ghosts have a way of coming back when you least expect them. The drive to the warehouse district took 18 minutes. Sarah's hands gripped the steering wheel steady now. No tremor, no hesitation, the muscle memory of combat readiness flooding back like water finding its old channels. She shouldn't have answered that phone. She'd promised herself 3 years ago. 3 years of bake sales and parent-teacher conferences. 3 years of being normal. 3 years of pretending that Colonel Sarah Mitchell had died in Zarange with the rest of Ghost 7. But some promises were made to be broken. The warehouse looked abandoned. Rust climbed the corrugated metal walls like ivy. Windows shattered decades ago let in thin streams of dusty light. The perfect place for people who didn't want to be found. Sarah parked 2 blocks away. Old habits always have an exit strategy, always know the terrain, always assume someone's watching. She walked the final distance, and every sense came alive. The way air moves around corners, the pattern of dirt disturbed by recent footsteps, the smell of gun oil that doesn't belong in an abandoned building. Inside, 3 men waited. They stood in a loose triangle, tactical positioning, each one covering a different approach, each one armed, each one watching her with the intensity of people who'd learned that relaxation got you killed. and each one supposed to be dead. "Hello, Colonel," the first man said. "Rodriguez." She'd written the letter to his wife, had stood at his memorial service, had watched his coffin get lowered into the ground at Arlington. "You're supposed to be dead," Sarah said. Her voice was flat, controlled, the way you speak when emotions are too dangerous to let surface. "So are you," Rodriguez replied. The second man stepped forward. Patterson, the Joker of Ghost 7, the one who could make you laugh even when everything was falling apart. Now his face was all hard edges and old scars. "We need your help," Patterson said. "There's a situation." "There's always a situation." Sarah didn't move from her position near the door. "Why now? Why after 3 years?" The third man hadn't spoken yet. Chen, the quiet one, the thinker. He was examining Sarah the way a scientist examines a specimen, looking for cracks, for weaknesses, for the person she used to be underneath the person she'd become. "Because people are going to die," Chen said finally, "and you're the only one who can stop it." Sarah laughed. It came out harsh, bitter. "I'm retired. I'm a grandmother now. I go to PTA meetings. I bake cookies. I'm not that person anymore." "Aren't you?" Rodriguez moved closer. "We saw the video, Jessica's live stream. You tore that gun store apart without even trying. You're still her. Still the sniper who could hit targets most people couldn't even see. Still the tactician who planned operations that saved hundreds of lives. Still the colonel who got 11 people killed," Sarah said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. No one spoke for a long moment. "That wasn't your fault," Patterson said finally. "We know that now. We know what really happened in Zaranj, who betrayed us, why the support never came." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "Then tell me why I watched my team die, why I held Williams while he bled out, why Martinez's last words were asking me to tell his daughter he loved her. Tell me why I'm standing here and they're not." Chen pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, showed her photos, documents, communications logs, evidence of something that made her blood run cold. "Because someone wanted Ghost 7 dead," Chen said. "Not captured, not interrogated, dead. We stumbled onto something we weren't supposed to see, asked questions we weren't supposed to ask, and they made sure we couldn't answer them." Sarah looked at the evidence, really looked, and saw the pattern she'd been too broken to see 3 years ago, the intelligence that came too late, the air support that got rerouted, the extraction that never arrived, the enemy that knew exactly where they'd be and when. It wasn't bad luck. It was murder. "Who?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "People with stars on their shoulders," Rodriguez said. "People who profit from wars that never end. People who saw Ghost 7 as a threat to operations that made them very rich and very powerful." Patterson pulled out more documents. "We've been tracking them for 3 years, building a case, gathering evidence, but they're too well protected, too connected. We need someone with the credibility to bring them down, someone they can't ignore or discredit." "We need Colonel Mitchell," Chen said. "Not the grandmother from the suburbs, the real one. The one who earned those medals, the one who testified before Congress, the one who people will believe when she says the military has traitors in its ranks." Sarah closed her eyes. She thought of her daughter, her granddaughter Emma, the normal life she'd built on the ashes of her old one, the promise she'd made to never go back, to never be that person again. But she also thought of Williams, Martinez, Johnson, all the others, the ones who'd trusted her, the ones who died thinking their country had abandoned them, the ones who deserved justice even if they couldn't be here to see it. "There's something else," Rodriguez said. "The team they're planning to hit next. They're good kids, inexperienced but good, and they're walking into the same trap we did. Different country, different mission, same result." "When?" Sarah asked. 72 hours. Sarah opened her eyes. "You should have led with that. Manipulation is beneath you, Rodriguez, even if it works." Patterson had the decency to look ashamed. "We knew you'd never come back for us, but for them." He gestured to a board covered in photos, young faces, barely old enough to drink. Some still had acne, all of them wearing the uniform with pride that only the young and naive could maintain. 50 personnel, Chen said. Most of them support staff, medics, intel analysts, translators, not combat troops. They're supposed to be evaluating a friendly base, but the intelligence is wrong. It's a setup, and in 3 days they're going to walk into it. Sarah looked at those faces, at the ages written next to their names. 22, 24, 19. Too young to die, too young to become statistics, too young to have their families receive folded flags and empty condolences. "What do you need from me?" she asked. The words came out steady, but inside something broke, or maybe something healed. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. Rodriguez smiled, not with happiness, with something grimmer. "We need you to be Colonel Mitchell one more time. We need you to call in favors, access old networks, get us the resources to pull those kids out before they even know they're in danger." "And after," Sarah asked, "after we save them?" "After," Chen said, "we burn down everyone who turned Ghost 7 into martyrs. We expose the conspiracy. We make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else." Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts she hadn't called in 3 years, names followed by titles: general, director, senator, people who owed her, people who remembered when Colonel Mitchell's word meant something. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "My family, my life, everything I've built." "We know," Patterson said, "and if you want to walk away, we'll understand, but those kids won't." Sarah made the first call. "Thompson, it's Mitchell, Sarah Mitchell." A pause. "Yes, I know it's been 3 years. I need a favor, a big one, and I need it in the next 12 hours. She looked at Rodriguez, Patterson, and Chen as she talked, at the ghosts who'd come back from the dead, at the evidence of betrayal that went all the way to the top, at the photos of kids who didn't know they were already dead unless someone stopped it. And she made her choice. Not the easy one, not the safe one, but the right one. Because some debts can only be paid in blood and sacrifice, and some promises are more important than the ones you make to yourself. The military had taught her many things, but the most important lesson was this: you never leave your people behind, even if it costs you everything, even if it destroys the life you built, even if it means becoming someone you thought you'd buried forever. Ghost 7 was going back to war. And this time, they weren't fighting in the dark. The response came faster than Sarah expected. 12 hours later, she stood in a secure room at a military installation that officially didn't exist. General Thompson sat across from her. The same Thompson who'd been a captain when they first served together, who'd survived because Sarah had pulled him from a burning Humvee in Fallujah when he was too stunned to move. "Tell me everything," Thompson said. So she did. Every detail, every piece of evidence Rodriguez, Patterson, and Chen had gathered, the pattern of betrayals, the money trails, the communications that proved Ghost 7 hadn't been killed by the enemy. They'd been sacrificed by their own side. Thompson's face grew harder with each revelation. He'd aged well, gray at the temples now, more lines around his eyes, but the man she'd served with was still there, the one who understood that duty meant more than following orders. "If this goes public," Thompson said carefully, "it will destroy careers, maybe break the military. People will lose faith in the institution." "People already lost faith," Sarah said. 11 soldiers did, when they died thinking their country had abandoned them, when the truth is their country murdered them. "You have proof." Sarah slid the tablet across the table. 3 years' worth, financial records, communications, video evidence, testimony from people who participated and now have guilty consciences. It's all there. Thompson spent 30 minutes reviewing it. His hands clenched the tablet tight enough that Sarah worried it might crack. Finally, he looked up. "This is bigger than I thought. If even half of this is accurate," he trailed off. "The team, the one you say is being set up, you're certain. Certain enough to stake my life on it." "You might have to." Thompson stood, packing the small room. "If we move on this, if we pull those kids out, everyone involved will know someone's onto them. They'll accelerate their timeline, go deeper underground. We might lose our chance at justice for Ghost 7. Sarah stood too, met his eyes. "Justice is meaningless if we let 50 more people die to get it. We save them first. Then we burn down everyone responsible. Even if it means the guilty escape." "They won't escape." Sarah's voice carried absolute certainty. "Because I'm not going to let them. Because Rodriguez, Patterson, and Chen aren't going to let them. Because you're not going to let them. We're going to hunt every single one. No matter how long it takes. No matter where they hide." Thompson smiled. It was a cold smile, a dangerous smile. "You know, Mitchell, I forgot how terrifying you could be when you made up your mind about something." "I haven't forgotten," Sarah said. "I just hoped I'd never need to be her again." The operation moved fast after that. Thompson had resources Sarah didn't. Satellite surveillance, real-time intelligence, the ability to move assets without triggering the usual bureaucratic delays. Most importantly, he had plausible deniability. If things went wrong, Sarah would take the fall. Thompson would express shock, claim he'd been misled, protect the institution while individuals burned. She was fine with that. Protecting the institution had never been the point. Protecting the people in it was. 2 days later, Sarah found herself on a transport heading to a forward operating base in a country whose name would never appear in official reports. Rodriguez, Patterson, and Chen were already on the ground, moving in the shadows like they'd never stopped, like 3 years of being dead had just been practice for the real thing. The team they were saving didn't know they were in danger. Captain Emma Cross, 26 years old, first command, smart, capable, everything Sarah had been at that age, leading a routine evaluation that was anything but routine. Sarah studied the mission parameters during the flight. The more she looked, the angrier she got. The intelligence was obviously fabricated. The timeline was suspiciously rushed. The support structure was deliberately inadequate, every element designed to maximize casualties while maintaining plausible deniability. It was Ghost 7 all over again. Except this time, someone was watching. Someone who'd seen this pattern before. Someone who'd lost everything the first time and wouldn't let it happen again. The transport landed under cover of darkness. Sarah grabbed her gear. The weight felt familiar, comforting in a way that 3 years of civilian life never had. She tried to convince herself that she was happier in the suburbs, that baking cookies and attending school functions fulfilled her. But the truth was simpler and sadder. She was a weapon. Always had been, always would be. And weapons only felt right when they were being used for their intended purpose. Rodriguez met her on the tarmac. "Captain Cross and her team are scheduled to arrive at the target location in 16 hours. We've got maybe 12 to set up an intercept." "The people who set this up," Sarah asked, "do they know we're coming?" "If they do, they're not acting like it. Our surveillance shows normal patterns. No unusual movements. Either they're supremely confident or they don't think anyone's caught on." "Never underestimate enemy competence," Sarah said. "That's how you end up dead." Patterson joined them. "We've identified 3 possible ambush points along the route. My money's on the second location. Better sightlines, more cover, closer to enemy reinforcement." "Show me." They moved to a tactical planning room. Maps covered every surface. Satellite images showed terrain in brutal detail. Sarah studied it all with the intensity of someone who knew that missed details meant body bags. "Here," she said, pointing to a ridge overlooking the second ambush point. "We set up here, Chen, can you get us surveillance drones? Already done. We've had eyes on target for the last 6 hours. Hostiles have been moving into position. Estimate 40 to 60 enemy combatants. Heavy weapons, prepared positions. They're expecting our people and planning to hit them hard. Sarah felt cold clarity settle over her. The same feeling she'd had before every mission, when fear got pushed aside and only the job mattered, only keeping people alive mattered, only winning mattered. "We move in 4 hours," she said. "Rodriguez, I need you on communications. When Captain Cross's convoy gets close, you're going to redirect them. Make it sound official. Make it sound boring. Route change due to road conditions. Nothing that raises alarms. And if she questions it?" "She won't. She's young. She trusts the system. She hasn't learned yet that sometimes the system is what's trying to kill you." Patterson checked his rifle. "What about the ambush team? We just let them sit there." "No," Sarah said. "We're going to send them a message, one their masters will understand. We're going to let them know that Ghost 7 remembers, and we're coming for all of them." The operation launched before dawn. Sarah moved through the darkness like she'd never stopped, muscle memory taking over, the weight of gear, the sound of boots on rock, the careful breathing that kept you quiet and alert and alive. They reached the ridge while stars still burned overhead. Chen deployed the drones, silent, invisible, eyes in the sky that saw everything, the enemy positions, the kill zones, the escape routes, every detail mapped and cataloged and filed away for future use. Below, the ambush team waited, confident, patient, professional. These weren't ragtag insurgents. These were trained soldiers, probably contractors, definitely expensive. The kind of people who got hired when governments needed something done that couldn't appear in official records. Sarah set up her rifle. The scope was familiar in her hands. She'd spent thousands of hours behind glass just like this, learning to read wind, compensate for distance, account for temperature and humidity and a dozen other variables that turned shooting from a skill into an art. "Range to primary target?" she asked quietly. 870 meters, Chen replied. "Wind 3 to 5 knots from the east, temperature dropping, barometric pressure stable." Sarah made her adjustments, settled into her breathing, became still in the way that only snipers understood, not moving, not thinking, just being, just waiting for the moment when everything aligned. "Captain Cross's convoy just diverted," Rodriguez said through the comm. She bought the story. They're taking the alternate route, should bypass the ambush entirely. "Good," Sarah said. "Now comes the fun part." She centered her crosshairs on the enemy commander. You could always tell who was in charge, the way others deferred, the way they moved with confidence that came from authority. This one was checking a tablet, probably wondering why the Americans were late. Sarah's finger rested on the trigger. Not pulling, not yet, just there, ready, patient. "Give them a warning," Patterson said. "Let them know they've been burned." Sarah squeezed, the rifle bucked, the sound echoed across the valley. 870 meters away, the tablet exploded in the commander's hands, shrapnel and electronics scattering, the man dropping to the ground, alive, unharmed, but terrified. "Message sent," Sarah said. They moved out before the enemy could respond, ghosts in the darkness. Their one moment, gone the next. By the time the ambush team organized a response, Sarah and her team were already miles away. Captain Cross and her team never knew how close they'd come to dying. They completed their mission, filed their reports, went home to families who'd never know that someone they'd never met had saved their lives. That was fine. Sarah didn't do it for recognition. She did it because it was right. Because those kids deserved to grow old, because their families deserved to see them again, because the military was supposed to protect its people, not sacrifice them for profit. Back at the base, Thompson was waiting. "Captain Cross is safe," he said. Her entire team, not a scratch on any of them. Good. The ambush team scattered. They'll report back to whoever hired them. Tell them the operation was compromised. Also good. Thompson studied her. You know what happens next, don't you? They'll come after you, after all of us. They can't let this stand. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm counting on it. Let them come. Let them try, because now they're playing my game, and I've had 3 years to think about how I want this to end. And how's that? With everyone who betrayed Ghost 7 answering for what they did, with their names exposed, their careers destroyed, their freedom taken. I want them to feel what we felt, abandoned, betrayed, alone. That's not justice, Thompson said quietly. That's revenge. Sometimes, Sarah replied, they're the same thing. The conspiracy ran deeper than anyone expected. Over the next weeks, Rodriguez, Patterson, Chen, and Sarah peeled back layers of corruption that made them physically ill. Arms deals that funded terrorism, torture sites hidden in allied countries, money flowing through shell corporations that existed only on paper, officers who'd sworn oaths to defend the Constitution actively working to subvert it. All in the name of profit. All protected by classification and secrecy, and the assumption that no one would ever look closely enough to see the pattern. They'd miscalculated. Sarah had always been good at seeing patterns, at connecting dots that seemed unrelated, at asking questions that made powerful people nervous. That's why she'd been recruited for Ghost 7 in the first place. Now she was using those same skills to build a case that would topple careers and potentially change the military forever. Jessica's video from the gun store had gone viral. 5 million views and climbing. People commenting, sharing, creating memes. Don't underestimate Grandma became a catchphrase. Someone even made t-shirts. Tyler Brooks had issued a public apology, said he'd been unprofessional, that he'd learned a valuable lesson about judging people. His store's business had actually increased, people wanting to train where that badass old lady had shot. Sarah found it grimly amusing. They still didn't know who she was, still didn't understand what that video represented. A ghost coming back to life, a weapon being unsheathed after years in storage, a warning that went unheeded because no one was paying attention. But some people were watching. Anderson, another store owner, had recognized her, not from the video, from a photo on his wall, a photo from Somalia, a photo of Ghost 7 in happier times. He'd called her, they'd met, he'd offered whatever help she needed. And suddenly Sarah wasn't alone anymore. Veterans started reaching out, people who'd served with her, people who'd heard the stories, people who understood that when Colonel Mitchell asked for help, it wasn't for personal reasons. It was because something was wrong, something that needed fixing, something that threatened the very institution they'd all sworn to protect. The evidence grew, the case strengthened, the net tightened. But the enemy wasn't sitting idle. Sarah's house got broken into. Nothing stolen, just rearranged. A message. We know where you live. We know about your family. We can reach you anytime. Her daughter called, terrified. Someone had followed Emma home from school, just watching, not approaching, but watching. That crossed a line. Sarah made a call, one she'd hoped never to make, to people who specialized in protection, who understood that sometimes the best defense was an aggressive offense. Within 24 hours, her family was safe, protected by former special operations personnel who'd owed Sarah favors, who understood that threatening a soldier's family was the fastest way to make them absolutely ruthless. Thompson pulled her aside after learning about the threat. They're escalating, getting desperate. That makes them dangerous. They were always dangerous, Sarah replied. Now they're scared, that makes them sloppy. Or more willing to take extreme action. Let them try. Sarah's voice was ice. I've been in worse situations, faced worse enemies. The difference is, I'm not a scared kid anymore. I'm not someone who trusts the system to protect me. I'm someone who knows exactly how dark it can get, and I'm willing to go darker. Patterson appeared with new intelligence. We've identified 3 of the primary conspirators, 2 colonels, 1 general, all with access to classified operations, all with financial ties to the defense contractors who profit from extended conflicts. Can we prove it in court? Sarah asked. With what we have, maybe, but it would take years, appeals, delays, political pressure. They'd die of old age before seeing justice. Sarah stood. Then we don't wait for courts. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we do what Ghost 7 was always good at. We expose them publicly. Make them so toxic that defending them becomes politically impossible. Leak the evidence to journalists who can't be intimidated. Go to Congress. Make so much noise that it can't be covered up. That'll end your career, Chen said. Possibly put you in prison, leaking classified information, conducting unauthorized operations. The list of charges would be extensive. Sarah thought about her granddaughter Emma, about Captain Cross and her team, about Williams dying in her arms, about all the soldiers who'd been betrayed by people they trusted. I don't care about my career, she said. I care about making sure this never happens again. If that means I spend my retirement in Leavenworth, so be it. But those kids get to grow old. They get to come home. They get to trust that the military has their back. You're serious, Thompson said. It wasn't a question. Dead serious. Then you're going to need more help than we can provide. This isn't a military operation anymore. It's political warfare, and that requires different weapons. Thompson made some calls, people Sarah didn't know, journalists with protected sources, congressional staffers with axes to grind, whistleblower protection lawyers, the machinery of democracy that worked when people were brave enough to feed it truth. Within days, stories started breaking, carefully sourced, legally defensible, explosive. Anonymous sources reveal widespread corruption in military procurement. Ghost 7, the team that knew too much. How defense contractors manipulate operations for profit. Each story added to the pressure. Each revelation made it harder for the conspirators to hide. Each exposed thread made it easier to pull the whole sweater apart. But it also made Sarah a target. Official investigations were launched, not into the conspirators, into her, into who'd leaked classified information, into unauthorized operations, into Colonel Sarah Mitchell and her rogue activities. The same institution she was trying to save was now treating her as the enemy. It hurt more than Sarah expected. She'd given everything to the military, years of her life, her health, her relationships, her peace of mind, and now they were investigating her for trying to stop corruption that literally got people killed. It's not personal, Thompson tried to explain. It's institutional. They have to be seen doing something. But behind the scenes, people understand. They know what you're doing, why you're doing it. Understanding doesn't stop them from prosecuting, Sarah said. No, but it means when this is over, when the dust settles, history will remember you as the hero, not them. I don't care about history. I care about justice. You'll get both, Thompson promised, just maybe not in the order you want. The hearings came fast. Congressional committees demanding answers. Sarah testifying under oath. Cameras broadcasting every word. The country watching as a grandmother in a simple dress explained how the military had systematically betrayed its own people for profit. She was compelling, credible, impossible to dismiss. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records that showed millions flowing to offshore accounts. Communications that proved knowledge of operational compromises. Testimony from people who'd participated and now wanted to come clean. Careers ended in real time. Generals forced into retirement. Defense contractors losing contracts. Congressional oversight expanded, reforms implemented, the military changing because it had to, because the alternative was losing public trust completely. Ghost 7 was avenged. Not in the way Sarah had imagined, not with dramatic raids or battlefield justice, but with something better, with systemic change, with accountability, with the promise that future teams wouldn't be sacrificed on the altar of profit. But the cost was high. Sarah faced charges, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, conducting operations without approval, a dozen technical violations that carried significant prison time. Her lawyer was optimistic. Public sentiment is on your side. Any jury will see you as a hero. And with the reforms happening, the government might not even want to prosecute. The optics are terrible. Sarah didn't care about optics. She'd done what needed doing. If there was a price, she'd pay it. Her family visited her before the trial. Her daughter, her granddaughter Emma. They didn't understand everything that had happened, but they understood enough. "You did the right thing," her daughter said, "even if it cost you everything." Emma hugged her tight. "My grandma's a hero." Sarah held that little girl and felt something break inside her. The same thing that had broken in Zaranj. The same thing that had made her human in a profession that demanded you be something more. "I'm not a hero," she whispered. "Heroes don't lose 11 people. Heroes don't spend 3 years hiding while people they could have helped died anyway. Heroes are clean, pure. I'm just someone who finally did something right after doing so much wrong." "That's what makes you a hero, Mom," her daughter said. "You came back, when you could have stayed hidden, when you could have protected yourself. You came back and fought for people you didn't even know." Maybe that was true. Maybe heroism wasn't about being perfect. It was about choosing to do the right thing even when it hurt, even when it cost you, even when no one would thank you for it. The trial never happened. In a surprise move, the prosecutor dropped all charges, cited public interest, cited the reforms that had been implemented, cited Sarah's service record and the fact that her actions, while technically illegal, had been morally justified. Thompson told her later that the decision had come from the very top, the president, who'd reviewed the case personally and decided that prosecuting a genuine American hero would be political suicide. "You're free," Thompson said. "No charges, no trial, just free." Sarah didn't feel free. She felt tired, bone-deep tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying weight for too long, from fighting battles that should never have needed fighting, from being a weapon when she'd wanted to be a person. But she'd won. Ghost 7 was avenged, reforms were real, future teams would be safer, and 3 ghosts who were supposed to be dead were officially alive again, pardoned, restored, given back their lives and their honor. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. Some of the conspirators had escaped, taken retirement deals that let them keep their pensions, moved to countries without extradition treaties, disappeared into comfortable obscurity while the people they'd betrayed stayed dead. But it was something. It was justice, even if incomplete. It was accountability, even if delayed. It was the system working, even if only after being forced to by someone willing to sacrifice everything to make it. Sarah returned to her suburban life, but it was different now. People recognized her from the hearings, thanked her at grocery stores, asked for photos, treated her like she was someone important. She found it exhausting. She'd never done it for recognition, never wanted to be known. She just wanted to keep people safe, to make sure that soldiers who trusted their country weren't betrayed by it, to honor the memory of 11 people who died thinking they'd been abandoned when the truth was so much worse. Months passed, life settled into new rhythms. Tyler from the gun store sent her a letter, apologizing again, asking if she'd be willing to come back and teach a course on tactical shooting. Said people kept asking about the grandmother who could outshoot professionals. Sarah declined politely. She was done teaching, done sharing skills that had been forged in blood and tragedy, done being Colonel Mitchell in any public capacity. But sometimes late at night she'd get calls from Thompson, from other officers who'd heard the stories, asking advice, asking her to review operations, asking if she'd noticed any patterns that suggested problems. And she'd help. Not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't stop being what she was, a weapon, a guardian, someone who saw threats others missed and felt compelled to stop them. Rodriguez, Patterson, and Chen stayed in touch. They'd been offered positions in military intelligence, oversight roles, using their experience to prevent future Ghost Sevens. They'd accepted. Someone has to watch the watchers, Rodriguez told her. Might as well be people who know what it's like to be betrayed by them. It was good work, important work, and they were good at it. One evening, Sarah sat on her porch watching the sunset, Emma playing in the yard, her daughter cooking dinner inside, everything normal, everything peaceful, everything she'd fought for. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Thank you." No name, no context, but Sarah knew. It was from Captain Cross, or one of the other 50 soldiers she'd saved. People who'd been told that the route change had been routine, who'd never known they'd been walking into an ambush, who'd never known that a ghost had been watching over them. Sarah deleted the message. She didn't need thanks, didn't want recognition. She just wanted them alive, wanted them to come home to families who loved them, wanted them to grow old and complain about their backs hurting and worry about mortgages and all the beautiful, boring problems of people who got to live. That was enough. That was everything. The sun dipped below the horizon, gold and red painting the sky. Emma laughed at something. Her daughter called that dinner was ready. Normal life continued its beautiful, unremarkable rhythm. And Sarah Mitchell, who'd been a ghost, who'd been a weapon, who'd been a hero and a failure and everything in between, smiled. Because in the end, dignity doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need recognition or praise or medals. It doesn't need the world to know what it's done. Dignity simply acts, quietly, inevitably, doing what's right not because anyone's watching but because it's right. And that's a kind of victory that no enemy can ever take away.